Every episode ended the same way. The lights in the Walton house went out one by one as the family called out to each other across the dark. Good night, John Boy. Good night, Mary Ellen. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Grandpa. Good night, Grandma. The ritual was so simple and so complete that it became across 9 seasons on CBS from September 14, 1972 to June 4, 1981, one of the most recognized closing sequences in American television history. The Waltons was based on the real childhood memories of creator Earl Hamner Jr., who grew up in rural Virginia during the Great Depression and distilled those memories into a family drama that won 37 Emmy nominations, 13 wins, 15 Golden Globe nominations, and 2 wins, and that gave American television something it had not seen in years: a large family on screen together, in genuine warmth, in genuine difficulty, finding their way through both without losing each other. Today, some of those lights have gone out for good, others are still on. This is where they all ended up. Number 1 is Will Geer, who played Zebulon Grandpa Walton, and who brought to that role a life so large and so complicated that the gentle old man on Walton's Mountain was the quietest version of himself he had ever been asked to perform. He was born William Og Garay on March 9, 1902, in Frankfort, Indiana, the son of a postal worker whose father left the family when Will was 11. He studied botany at the University of Chicago, where his grandfather had taught him the names of every plant in Indiana, and came to theater through a combination of intellectual restlessness and genuine passion for performance. By the 1930s, he was in New York, organizing with labor movements, befriending Woody Guthrie, performing in theater and on the radio, and building a political life as vivid and as committed as his artistic one. He was blacklisted by Hollywood in 1951 after refusing, before the House Un-American Activities Committee, to name the names of people he knew who had joined the Communist Party. The committee subpoenaed him, he took the Fifth Amendment, and his film career was effectively destroyed for the better part of a decade. He spent those years working as a gardener and landscaper in Topanga Canyon, California, applying the botany he had learned from his grandfather to the land he lived on, and building the Theatricum Botanicum, an outdoor theater on his property that he ran as a community space for artists who had been blacklisted alongside him. The theater still operates today, run by his daughter Ellen Geer. What most viewers never knew is that Will Geer was openly gay at a time when that fact was professionally ruinous. His partner Harry Hay, whom he had met in the early 1930s, went on to become one of the founding figures of the modern LGBTQ rights movement in America, co-founding the Mattachine Society in 1950. Geer and Hay's relationship preceded any organized gay rights movement by 20 years. Geer later married Herta Ware, with whom he had 3 children, and the two remained close friends after their divorce. His personal life was, by any measure, a half-century ahead of the public conversation that eventually caught up to it. The Waltons gave him his final and most lasting audience. He played Grandpa Walton for 6 seasons, winning the Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Drama Series in 1975, and became beloved by viewers who had no idea who he had been or what he had survived. His family was at his bedside as he died on April 22, 1978, of respiratory failure. They sang Woody Guthrie's "This Land Is Your Land" and recited Robert Frost poems as he passed. He was 76. The character of Grandpa Walton died of a heart attack in the first episode of the following season. His burial location is at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. The man who had been blacklisted for refusing to name names ended his career as the most beloved grandfather on American television, and the industry that had destroyed him spent 5 years giving him standing ovations. He is in Glendale. The Theatricum Botanicum is still in Topanga, still putting on plays, still named after the thing he knew when there was nothing else. His granddaughter Willow Geer performs there. The garden he planted during the blacklist years is still growing. A man who organized milk strikes in the 1930s, who befriended Woody Guthrie and Harry Hay, who refused to name names before a congressional committee, who built a theater in a canyon while Hollywood pretended he did not exist. That man spent his final years being beloved by the exact country that had tried to erase him, and he died with his family singing "This Land Is Your Land" around his bed. There are not many lives that end better than that. Number 2 is Ellen Corby, who played Esther Grandma Walton and who was the only adult actor to appear in both the original Homecoming pilot in 1971 and the regular series that followed. A continuity of character across 11 years that required a kind of sustained, disciplined performance almost no television actress of her generation was given the opportunity to make. She was born Ellen Hansen on June 3, 1911 in Racine, Wisconsin. She came to Hollywood in the 1930s and worked for 2 decades in bit parts and uncredited roles, also serving as a script assistant for studios during the lean periods between acting jobs. Her first significant recognition came in 1948 when she was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for I Remember Mama, a performance of quiet, specific emotional truth that gave the industry its first real look at what she was actually capable of. She spent the following decades in character roles on television and in film, building a resume of nearly 200 productions without ever quite becoming a household name. The Waltons gave her Grandma Esther, a woman whose fierceness and warmth existed in perfect equilibrium, whose humor was dry and whose love was absolute, whose presence in any scene told the audience immediately what actually mattered in it. She won 3 Emmy Awards for the role in 1973, 1975, and 1976, and a Golden Globe, 3 Emmys for the same character, across the same series, in a period when the Television Academy was still figuring out how to honor long-form character work. She earned every one. In November 1976, midway through the show's 5th season, Corby suffered a severe stroke that impaired both her speech and her mobility. The show wrote her character's stroke directly into the storyline, rather than recasting or writing the character out, a decision that honored both Corby's central place in the family and her determination to return. She did return, briefly in 1977, and then more substantially in the show's later seasons and in 5 of the 6 reunion movies, working around the lasting effects of the stroke with a professional discipline that everyone who worked with her described as humbling. Ellen Corby died on April 14, 1999, at her home in Woodland Hills, California, at age 87. She is interred at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, beside her on-screen husband Will Geer, who had died 21 years before her. Grandma and Grandpa Walton are buried in the same cemetery, which is either the most beautiful coincidence in the show's long history or exactly what the writers would have planned. Number 3 is Ralph Waite, who played John Walton Sr., the patriarch, the mill owner, the father who loved his family with a fierceness he rarely expressed in words, and who arrived at that role carrying a personal history that made the character's quiet strength feel like something drawn from life rather than constructed for a script. He was born on June 22, 1928, in White Plains, New York. He served in the United States Marine Corps, earned a bachelor's degree from Bucknell University, studied theology at Yale Divinity School, and worked as a social worker and a publicist before he came to acting in his mid-30s, a trajectory that was unusual enough that when he got to Hollywood, he understood his characters from the inside in a way that formally trained actors sometimes could not. What most viewers never knew is the grief he carried through the early years of the show. In 1964, his 9-year-old daughter died of leukemia. He had been struggling with alcohol abuse for some time before the show began, and by his own later accounts, the discipline and the structure of the Waltons' years helped him find his way to sobriety. He wrote about this publicly, and the transparency of those accounts became one of the things people admired most about him off-camera. On camera, John Walton Sr. was the man who held the mountain together. Off it, Ralph Waite was a man who had been broken and rebuilt himself, and neither experience disappeared when the cameras stopped rolling. After the show ended, he worked consistently for the next 3 decades, recurring on Days of Our Lives, appearing on NCIS as Jackson Gibbs, and taking film roles that ranged from 5 Easy Pieces with Jack Nicholson to Cliffhanger with Sylvester Stallone. He was nominated for an Emmy for his work in the miniseries Roots in 1977 and for The Waltons itself in 1978. Ralph Waite died of natural causes on February 13, 2014, at his home in Palm Springs, California. He was 85. His burial location has not been publicly documented. John Walton Sr. was the man Walton's mountain could lean against. Ralph Waite spent his private years earning the right to play him. If these stories mean something to you, please subscribe. Every detail in this script was researched and verified. Your subscription keeps this channel alive. Number 4 is Richard Thomas, who played John Boy Walton, the eldest son, the aspiring writer, the character through whose eyes the entire show was filtered, and whose voiceover narrated each episode episode from a perspective of adult memory, looking back at Depression-era childhood, and who is alive in 2026 at age 74, still working, still entirely present. He was born on June 13, 1951, in New York City, the son of two ballet dancers and dance teachers. He was acting on stage at age 7 and had a substantial theater resume before John Boy Walton made him a household name at 20. He won the Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series in 1973 for the role, and played it for 5 seasons before leaving in 1977 to pursue other work. What most viewers never expected is the range of what followed. He played adult Bill Denbrough in the 1990 television adaptation of Stephen King's It, a casting decision so contrary to John Boy Walton's gentle intellectual that it seemed almost provocative, and that he played with absolute conviction. He played Frank Godd, the FBI supervisor pursuing Elizabeth Jennings across multiple seasons of The Americans. He appeared on Ozark. He has narrated more than 300 audiobook titles, building a parallel career in that medium that has reached audiences who have never seen a single episode of The Waltons. He returned to John Boy in 2022 for a Waltons Thanksgiving reunion special on the CW, hosted by his character and reuniting surviving cast members. He is, in 2026, one of the most continuously active actors of his generation. Number 5 is Michael Learned, who played Olivia Walton, John Sr.'s patient, deeply loving wife, the mother whose warmth was the show's emotional center, and who is alive in 2026 at age 85, having won 4 Emmy Awards across her career and built a resume that extends far beyond the mountain where she raised her fictional children. She was born on April 9, 1939, in Washington, D.C. She spent years in repertory theater before the Waltons, and the theatrical discipline she brought to Olivia gave the character a depth that domestic television mothers of the 1970s were rarely granted. She left the show after season 7 in 1979 and was replaced in the final 2 seasons, returning for the reunion movies. She won 3 Emmy Awards for the Waltons in 1973, 1974, and 1976, and a 4th for the series Nurse in 1982. What most viewers never knew is that Learned's personal path to Olivia Walton was not a simple one. She had been married 3 times before the show ended, raising children while managing the demands of a major television production in an era when those 2 realities were considered incompatible for women in ways they were not for men. She has spoken about the difficulty of that balance with more directness than most performers of her generation were willing to risk. In 2026, she is 85 years old, still accepting occasional roles, still recognized everywhere she goes as the woman who said goodnight to her children on television for 7 years and made 30 million Americans feel better about their own families. Number 6 is John Walmsley, who played Jason Walton, the musically gifted second son, the one who played guitar and piano, and whose artistic sensibility was the family's second outlet for creativity after John Boy's writing, and who had been the voice of Christopher Robin in the Academy Award-winning Disney featurette Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day in 1967. 3 years before the Waltons began. He was born on February 6, 1956, in Blackburn, England, and came to California as a child with his family. He is alive in 2026, spending his years in music, composing, performing, and producing, having built a second career after the show that is truer to Jason Walton's arc than most actors get to claim. Number 7 is Judy Norton, who played Mary Ellen Walton, the spirited eldest daughter, the one who became a nurse, who fought hardest against the mountain's limitations and stayed closest to what the mountain had given her, and who is alive in 2026 at age 67, having expanded her work into writing, directing, and theater. After the acting career wound down, she wrote and starred in the thriller Inclusion Criteria in 2018. She has maintained one of the most active public presences of any Waltons cast member, including a YouTube channel on which she discusses the show's production history with a candor and a specificity that the fan community has found invaluable. She attended Waltons cast reunions consistently over the decades when others had stepped back, and she appeared in the 2022 Waltons Thanksgiving special alongside Richard Thomas. She is, at 67, in many ways the most actively engaged keeper of the show's institutional memory. The eldest daughter still doing what eldest daughters do, which is making sure nobody forgets what the family was and what it meant to the people who grew up with it. The lights are going out more slowly than most shows of the same vintage. Will Geer and Ellen Corby are both at Forest Lawn, Grandpa and Grandma in the same cemetery, 21 years apart, as if the writers planned it from the beginning. Ralph Waite is in a location his family has kept private, gone in 2014 at 85, the patriarch who built something real before he played one, and the younger generation of the family is largely still here. Richard Thomas at 74, still narrating, still acting, still carrying John Boy's voice. Michael learned at 85, the mother of the mountain, still working. John Walmsley making music in California. Judy Norton keeping the story alive for the people who grew up with it. Every episode ended the same way. The lights went out one by one, and the voices called across the dark to each other. What most viewers felt but rarely said is that the calling was the point, that the darkness was not the end of something, but the context in which the voices mattered most. That what the Waltons were, at their best, was a family that kept calling to each other even after the lights went out. Good night, Grandpa. Good night, Grandma. Good night, John Walton. We still hear you. If these stories meant something to you, leave a comment below. Tell me which one hit hardest. I read every reply.